The Maroon White Pod brought to you by Citylink. For bookings, timetables, updates and any other information. Round 1 of the Senior and Intermediate Football Championship over from the weekend. Some cracking contests between the Intermediate and Senior. I'm joined by Jonathan Higgins and Donal Fátharta to look back in action. Jonathan, it felt like so long ago since we had a club championship game, but some cracking ties over the weekend to get it started.
Yeah, it sure was, wasn't it? I think, well, I know personally I'm a bit shattered now after the weekend. It's been a long weekend of games, but great to have it back. It felt a bit surreal in the build-up, perhaps. Maybe it's just the hangover after the All-Ireland final and trying to digest that. It's almost a bit surreal that we were back in action. But yeah, no, some really competitive games. It was primarily I was in Tuam on Saturday for that double header, and then at Pearse Stadium on Sunday. And a lot of bite, a lot of needle, a lot of championship football, a lot of big results. And it certainly, I suppose, whet the appetite. You'd probably say the majority of the games in the senior championship have gone as you probably would have expected and would have anticipated. But an exciting championship already starting to spark up, and I think the structure is adding to that already. The 16 and the 4, and then the 3 going through that dynamic. We've seen it in the intercounty set up how it's absolutely imperative really that you have to finish top and avoid that extra game and the 3 weeks in a row. And it looks like a lot of teams are ready or are eyeing up top spot, and I think no more so than the wide open Group 4. We're seeing that a good bit as well. Yeah, but no, really exciting. I suppose great variety of football and variety of games. But yeah, no, a really exciting weekend.
Donal, even with the players who are involved with the county, I suppose maybe just with the way intercounty football is, not all of those players get action throughout the year. So for some of these non-Toggin subs, like it's good for them to get back to their clubs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just getting on the field for games. They would look at been involved in an intercounty squad. Obviously, the level of training you're doing and the strength and conditioning and all of that sort of stuff, you're in prime condition. But matches are, you know what I mean, and definitely championship matches are where it's at. And I'm sure there was a lot from our ex panel that were delighted to get on the on the pitch the last day. And look at it's just to echo what Jonathan said there, that the structure this year I think is very good. It's quicker. Last year or the last couple of years, is a bit drawn out with the 5 or 6 games and stuff like that. So look at it's the first round. They're only probably sparring at the minute, but it will be exciting. Hopefully, if the weather holds up over the next few weeks, yeah, definitely.
It's safe to say over the weekend with these power rankings, the phone has been hopping from different clubs, reminded me of the results over the weekend. But first, just to go through the senior power rankings, you can see this on the screen, I presume, that's can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just the senior ones there first, and I'll get the lads' thoughts then. So Kerfin remain in top spot, county champions, obviously. Sawtill Knocknacarra with their 2 point win in second place. Moycullen coming back from the dead, they're up 1 place into third. Sawtill then Claregalway up 3 places into fourth after they went over Tuam narrowly in the end. Then Tuam fifth, down 2 places after their 1 point defeat. Montbellion maintain sixth place, and then Letchermore up 6 places into seventh after their big win over Castran. Milltown up 2 places into eighth after their big win, and down to 14 men as well for long periods against Killannon. And down up 1 place into ninth. Obviously just narrowly bet Bern in the end. Dunmore are up by 9 points but lost in the end, down 1 place. Uachtar down 4 places against where they lost obviously there to Kerfin. St. James's, they're down 7 places after the draw with Monavea Abbey. Monavea Abbey then they're up 1 place after coming back from the dead. Killannon down 2, Berna then up 1 place, and Castran in bottom place after their heavy defeat to Letchermore. Jonathan, am I spot on or am I wrong, or what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, you love a bit of drama, Paul, don't you? It's all for the clicks. Yeah, just trying to digest that. Like the one that strikes out there is James is down 7. I still think James is there. Look, that game with 2 big factors really in it. The elements, as we've seen pretty much on every game over the course of the weekend, but particularly in Tuam, where it's just wide open there. The elements had a big factor. in it, and then the red card in the second half changed the course of the game. You have 12 and 13 there. James is one of Abbey, but James is for me they're a very shrewd outfit still, and I'd have them a lot higher up the table. They've more chances there of winning than I'd say 5 or 6 teams ahead of them. I think they're one of the dark horses to contend. We saw them last year, how far they went and how unlucky they were. You see the quality of player that they have, the style of football, how well drilled they were for the majority of that game. Don't forget that they raced into 22 minutes, 7 points to no score. The red card had a big impact. But you see the quality of Sam O'Neill in particular. Jack wasn't bad either. Maybe a little bit concerned about the injury when he went off, but you saw Johnny Dewan as well. Got a wonderful score in the first half. That run down the left hand side in towards the town goal at Tuam Stadium, and their kickouts for me were phenomenal. So many set plays. I think 12th is probably a little bit off there with them. What else jumps out? Yeah, obviously one really isn't a Curfin, or I've said it openly, and not at a risk of saying we don't bother with the rest of the championship. But Curfin, for me, it would be an absolute miracle if they don't get over the line again. And I think you see the strength of their intermediate side as well, and what the whole club as a whole are building there. Salt Hill, probably the most impressive performance of the weekend, particularly the ones that I saw as well. I know probably not the greatest game in the world, but for flashes, particularly in the first half when they really got their raw running game going. Carl Sweeney was immense. Matthew Thompson, he has to be looking at Porrick Joyce's thoughts straight away, and I'm sure everyone has seen it by now. But when the game was in the melting pot, and the pressure was coming on, the score that he got, the dummy solo and outside of the left from pretty much the front row of the Tommy Varden stand to have the audacity to do that. He was absolutely outstanding. So they are probably the next in line in terms of contenders. What else are we looking at here? You've Moycullen up 1. Yeah, they probably a game that, again, Elements had a big say in it, didn't they? And they must be pretty daunting dressing room at half time for Carl Clancy, their first year in charge. What was the deficit? It was huge, Paul, wasn't it? They were down a considerable amount.
1-8-2.
Yeah, well, that's a huge lead, isn't it? And without David Wynn, who all accounts had an outstanding performance when he's on the pitch, but he missed. They were doing that halftime team talk, knowing that they wouldn't have him for the guts of 10 minutes in the second half, and to dig it out. That was probably an element of luck. The way the last score came in was an old school Hail Mary, and I think it was Niall Walsh that got a fist on it, and it crept over the line. But a big win. If they hadn't got that, there'd be question marks. But look, they're still a team, and there were so many unknowns, isn't it? Sean Kelly not togged. How much game time will he have? And I think we all anticipated that Damore would give them one hell of a rattle. And I suppose now in the cold light of day, it's probably before the game. If you're Damore, you're like, okay, that's fair enough. We'll get this close. We'll be happy. But when you're in the middle of the war and the situation that they're in, they're probably deeply regret maybe not getting a score or two at the start of the second half to try and edge out that lead. And even still, when the I suppose the onslaught came, they still found they worked the ball very impressively. Another side so well drilled, and they got that monster of a score from the advanced mark over in front of the stand, and then just a little bit unfortunate. Down in 10, yeah. Like you're looking around, I suppose Lettermore you have as the big jump up 6 places for a game that they probably would have anticipated to win in Carstrand. Like I think the next
just a manner of it, I suppose. Like it's a big statement. Like I can't remember, Devon had a 9-point win anyways for a while in the club championship. Yeah,
possibly, but I don't want to be too disrespectful. But that Carstrand team we're all looking at their best players. They're playing in Dublin and Meath, aren't they? That's it. They're in a big rebuilding job now. They've been hovering around that danger part of the choppy waters the last couple of years. That's a game I think they would have expected to be winning. I think I suppose the acid test for Lettermore will be their next game to see where they really are in the group, because that group was pretty much split down the middle. You have the two, I think, it's even 1-1 in terms of what you have on the top, and then there's a big split. 6 points up 6 seems a big jump for that. Mount Bellew staying the same. Yeah, they'll be disappointed. I think ultimately the performance. Another side that's lost a lot of big players. And there was stages in the first half there, even when they had the elements. Barry McHugh was so isolated. I think he's looking around and surprised that Owen Finnerty isn't beside him, or Mike Daly isn't making a run off them. They've lost a lot of players, still a few players not back from their travels. So not quite down to the bare bones, but they were up against it. James Foley thought led the fight in the second half, but they'll probably be disappointed. I know they put in a bit of a showing in the end, but they'll be disappointed overall. They seem to be dropping back a little bit. Who else have I not discussed on there? I didn't see much of Tuam and Clare Galway. I was in Pearse Stadium, just heard bits and pieces. It seems like an important win for Clare Galway, that one.
Yeah, big time. Donal, is there anything you see there?
No, it's hard to argue with that now. The way it's looking at there, because we have to remember as well that it's the first round, and guys are no more than the inter-county scene. You're trying to negotiate through to the knockout stages, and a lot of the big guns there, the Corfins, the Saltills, Moycullen'S, and Clare Galways, they'll make their way through, and Tuam, I suppose, and Montpellier, they'll make their way through, and they'll probably see it then. Top in the group would be great, because it would mean you're 3 games then away from a county final or winning a county final. And all teams there, Corfin, yes, they're number 1 and always or usually are. But when you're talking about Corfin, Saltill, Moycullen, Clare Galway, probably Tuam down to 6 maybe there, and James is maybe, I suppose, as Jonathan alluded there, probably in the mixer there. And a down maybe as well. You're talking it'd be hard out of the top 4 there to see the champions, come out of that, But on any given day, because the teams we've seen over the weekend, there'll be injuries, there'll be guys, maybe the likes of Sean Kelly coming back. There'll be a lot of stuff going on. We're a good bit away from, the business end, shall we say. So, like those guys will be trying to build. And Moycullen, for example, I think it was a big win for them yesterday now. You know what I mean? Because if they would have lost that, and still, I suppose it's a little bit of a wake up call to kind of there's no guarantees, because the likes of Dunmore's and Monavay's and these are good solid teams that put in a lot of work and have good managers and good trainers behind them, and the amount of work that's been put in even at intermediate level between trainers and S&Cs and stuff like that, which is great. We look at we're reaching senior All Irelands for the last couple of years as well, so. Galway football, I think, is in good nick. It's the teams are there's good solid teams there. Yes, Corfin or probably Saltills or maybe Moycullen might win it, but the games are getting tighter. There's the good contests now in the championship, which is fantastic, and the system the way it is at the minute, I think, helps that now this year, and that's why I think we got good games straight away. If it was the same systems last year, it might be a little bit more watery, but I think it started well, and hopefully it'll continue the way it is. But it's hard to argue with what you have there, Paul. You know what I mean? It's
I'll take that compliment, because I don't get many when it comes to this kind of thing. So
we'll correct you when you get around. Don't worry.
Just if we're to touch on the games, lads. Donal Danton was talking there about Saltill and Montpellier. Saltill get over the line 9-7. It probably did, though, come as a surprise that maybe Saltill didn't come through that more comfortably when you consider the bodies Montpellier have lost. Like, they've lost 10 from last year's team that started the semi-final.
Yeah, again, I would have heard that beforehand, but you look still at the Montpellier team that's there. They are missing the own finishes and all this sort of stuff, and there's a couple of guys missing, but they still are the nucleus of a very strong team, and with Val still there. So it doesn't surprise me, and you know what I mean, because there's no easy games, and Saltill are relatively young. Yes, they have their 5, I think it's 5, isn't it, on the inter-county senior panel, and 5 fantastic players. But just because you're on an inter-county senior panel doesn't mean you're a million miles ahead of a very good club player who is working as hard as you maybe with his club and minding himself maybe not as well, but almost. You know what I mean? The jump isn't, there's this kind of myth that, he's playing county, so he's way ahead. It doesn't work like that. And all football people know that. So Saltill are building. Finian's back in there, or is in there now at the helm. So, again, Saltill will be looking to get through, negotiate the group stages, get through to quarter final, and then it's game on then. And then that's where, a bit of experience maybe that the boys in the back room hopefully will have or might have, and the county guys, then you need to step up. that's what needs to happen to win a county championship, in my opinion. And they definitely have the guns for that. This year, next year, over the next couple of years, you know, they will be contending and probably might win a county championship. I would say they would be hoping to themselves, and they would, you know, they won't say that out, but that's what they'd be planning for, of course. And Matthew, you touched on Matthew there. We had him with the 20s. Absolutely fantastic player and definitely a prospect for Galway football. The modern
Is it only a
game.
matter of time before he's in with the seniors?
Oh, he'll be in this year, I'd imagine. Absolutely, yeah. He's like his vision, for me, always stood out when I came across him first. He has fantastic vision and a great passer of the ball, and a fantastic lad as well. You know what I mean? A great head on him. You know, so yeah, he definitely be if he wants it himself. You know, it's this guys have to make decisions. I'm sure he does. He's a great guy. He was captain, and Savo had him as captain last year, and he would have seen that straight away. So he's a good guy, and hopefully we wish him all the best when he does go in with us this year or the next year. You don't know what's happening in his life, but definitely he will add something, I think, to Galway football, you know, going forward.
Jonathan, you were obviously there. It's safe to say his dummy solo is probably the highlight of the weekend when you see the score he gets after that. But just on that as well, there was a couple of new faces obviously for Sawtell. How did they get on as well at the weekend? Particularly like Donal O'Sullivan, he's transferred in from Moycullen'S, and James McDermott as well, who would have played club football in Roscommon.
Yeah, so O'Sullivan came forward, particularly in the first half. He came forward for take 2 free kicks, which is a different dynamic because, you know, you worked in Salthill Knocknacar over the years. You're pretty much watching Rob Finnerty and Tom O'Canaan take all the free kicks. He came forward. It's like the first one was kind of one of these kind of, oh, I'm here sort of moments. Tom would grab the ball, and next thing you see the bib coming up from the goal. I think one went wide, one went short. Into a difficult breeze, albeit didn't really have anything from a shot stopping perspective. But yeah, look, it looks like you know, sometimes you can see, even though without necessarily maybe doing a lot, you can see such an experienced keeper. Like, is it up until last year's playing for Limerick, and you know, he's in a football and CV is through the roof, and so I think he's a doctor in the hospital now, isn't he? He's well settled. He's well settled in. So McDermott then, yeah, look, it looks like the more experienced, older defender, but did quite well. Very calm under possession. When I suppose there was a bit of a spell there in the second half for Moycullen'S. It was a weird dynamic. They got it down to 1, I think, and then they had a spell where they were creating a lot of, I suppose, attacks and stuff without really causing any bother. But there was a couple of Hail Marys coming in, and he was part of a defence there that was quite solid. But for me, like, it's back to the tried and trusted. The performance of possibly that I've seen over the weekend was John Maree. He was just, without him, they wouldn't have won the game. He's just continuing on. He seems to be getting better and better.
Was it Sweeney, Mayer, and Thompson? Were they the difference? Like,
Maree in particular was a standout. He really was. He really, like, without him, they wouldn't have won the game. That's how good of a performance for me was. Yeah, Sweeney was exceptional as well. A couple of points, particularly in the first half. When they were playing against the Bree, so they had the opportunity to go back to the strong counter-attack and running game that they have up their locker. And there's so many hard, fast runners there on the football. But those 3 in particular were the standout players probably of that game, and the standout players, I'd say, nearly over the course of the weekend. Maybe Owen Mannion's 7 points in Pearse Stadium kind of come close to that. But in terms of raw in the battle of the game, those 3 were exceptional. You have to say credit to Moycullen'S. Like, they stuck into the second half, and like, John Daly had a difficult day initially because he was trying to tag a little bit higher up the field Maree, and Maree was bouncing off him and knocking him around, and Daly went a little bit deeper in the second half and became effective. But the likes of James Foley, I thought, was Moycullen'S best player. You know, he really, really grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. And then you see some of the younger players coming through, like Kieran Mulhern had a good game as well in that second half. So I think there's enough there for Moycullen'S to like, ultimately, I think it's Josie Maree you described before as a football heritage. You know, some clubs have that. There's a tradition in it where you're used to winning, and even you mightn't necessarily be the best team. And maybe there's a little bit of element in my own club, Milltown, with that as well, where despite the elements, you still find a way, and you look at the likes of the power rankings and you go, oh, on paper, A versus B, this player versus that player shouldn't really be. But there's something ingrained, and you see clubs that probably struggle to get over the line with a lot bigger picks, a lot bigger quality of players, but sometimes it's that ruggedness, isn't it, that you see over championship football just takes on. You can't quantify that. I'm a stats nerd, but you can't really quantify that. But it is very much a factor.
Yeah, massive credit to Montpellier, because the names that they are missing there, a lot of clubs in Galway would not cope with that. If we're to just touch on the other game, Donal, Letchermore, like, you obviously would have been familiar with them, would have come up against them plenty of times with Spittle. I think, though, people have like underrated Letchermore, and somewhat, like, when you consider, even I was saying last week, what they did in the Comortas, like, that was, they were beating some really big clubs in that, and like, they've really seemed to build on that early on this year.
Yeah, not they wouldn't be underestimated out this way, Paul. And most definitely, we know them very, very well. They're come the last couple of years that they're at kind of the perfect age. A lot of their players now are at an age where they're kind of maturing a little bit more. A lot of them would have inter-county experience of some sort when you go through the names, between senior and 20. So they get, we'll get that out the west of it. We're kind of ignored a little bit, Ian, but if you go through the players, there's some, All Ireland 20 medals, would have played senior for Galway, stuff like that. So they're not, to me, it's not a surprise. Their forward line is absolutely fantastic. With Dylan, Oisín, Finn, these guys have all played between minor and under 20 for Galway at some stage. They go through, Finn, Oisín, Dylan himself.
Throw Warren into that as well, yeah.
Throw Warren into that. And then you put Miles McDonough, who's an absolutely fantastic footballer and a fantastic forward with pace. And again, Porrick could be looking at the likes of him as well. And you put in Eamon O'Lynchey into that forward line as well, who's, in his mid-30s, probably now Eamon, but again, fellas that would know him as a fantastic footballer as well. So their forward line is very, very dangerous. You know what I mean? So and obviously have attacking Matt London and midfield and stuff like that. And the defense mightn't be as prolific forwards and all, but overall they've had a good mortis, which is, out this way we'd always use that as a kind of building block for championship over the years. And they did well in that. Lucky probably to lose it in the end. But they are a very, very good team. That didn't surprise me, that they won by that amount. To be honest with you, I did expect them to beat Carlisle. But maybe I suppose the margin was probably a little bit more than people would have thought. But it's not surprising to me. And as Jonathan said earlier, it'd be interesting to see now them against the probably stronger teams and see where they're at there. You know what I mean? Defensively, they might struggle. Marquee forwards against the top teams, that's where they might struggle. You know what I mean? But definitely offensively, they're you know what I mean. They will give backs a horrid time with Finn's pace, and Oisín McDonough has a fantastic head on him. He might be the quickest in the world, but his angles of runs are very good free taker. Then you have Miles, who is lightning quick. Warren, who's like, you know what I mean? So they're coming at you you need to be right for them. You know what I mean? To really kind of snuff them out. So definitely delighted for them that they're up and running, because they're they would want to stay senior as long as they can. No more than ourselves. You know what I mean? They'd be, once kind of a cycle comes like that with good players, you want to kind of they just lost out in the intermediate final there a couple of years ago as well and stuff like that, and the Comortas final. So these guys have been around for the last 4 or 5 years, but they're kind of maturing a little bit now. They're that few years older, 24, 25, some of them, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, a fantastic team, and hopefully they can push on and get to a quarterfinal or something, semi-final. The draw goes well for you and you get a hit a bit of form. That's what they'd love, that, when you get to stay on the road as long as you can,
To do that as well without Sean Andy at the weekend it's fairly impressive too. Jonathan, something you touched on early on about Carlisle, and I know the transfers and everything, that's well documented at this stage, but to lose Alan Myers to a second cruciate injury in the space, back to back now for him, and Kieran Donlan as well, they're just two attackers, unfortunately, at the moment. Carlisle can't afford to lose.
Yeah, no, firstly, just on a personal note, like, that's just beyond cruel, isn't it? You can only imagine the amount of work that he did to get back after the first one. And again, geez, a shiver even thinking about it. Obviously, speedy recovery and all that. Not that our words will mean much to him now in that type of situation. That's cruel for the club as a whole. Then, like, you're a small rural club. The numbers are dwindling. You just cannot afford. We talked about a bigger club in Montpellier by law, in terms of population struggling, but a couple of people missing out of the team. Particularly, it's it just reciprocates just in multiple phases after that, and you can't just describe much of a blow that is. And look, sadly, they're going to probably struggle now. They're the way that group is. When we describe it, like it's split down the middle. That first game was nearly, not going to say relegation safe or not, but it probably is. Being the truth be told, they're already looking at an uphill task. Now, don't get me wrong; they'll fight to the death, and they absolutely will. But it's a big ask now, isn't it, Paul? Like that's the game they would have targeted to win, and you don't win it, and all the other dynamics going around it. Yeah, it's there's not really a way to gloss that one up, sadly.
Yeah, it definitely, like as you mentioned there, Jonathan, they're going to have to cause a shock now in this group to turn their championship campaign around.
Yeah, like they need a dog-like war performance now, don't they? Really, just everyone to the pump and try and get a shock out of someplace. The like, how do you even quantify it? Like so. Are you going straight away that you just want to finish third just to try and avoid relegation here? This one, you probably really are. Like, Lettermore's next game against Salthill-Knocknacarra, that's probably going to be a big thing and just what way the group will shape. Then after that, if Salthill win the game, as I would expect, then you're probably looking at a similar sort of situation to where the group might phase out now in the 1, 2, 3. Maybe it might change order, but it already looks like now, if you look at the odds, you're probably saying Salthill won. Then it's probably going to be a toss-up. We'll see how Ballymile steady the ship after that bit of a disappointment, but they'll probably still fancy themselves to try and edge second and Lettermore third, or that one could flip vice versa. I think the only thing you could say is you would expect Salthill now to finish top. It's going to take a big ask now. Like, you want to give everyone a chance, and look, all the games will be ultra competitive, but yeah, that's the way that group is shaping up at the moment, sadly, from their perspective.
Yeah, those were the two games in Group 1 over the weekend. Probably the game of the weekend then, I was in Kenny Park yesterday evening. Moycullen Dunmore, Moycullen 3-7, Dunmore 1-12. This one, Donal, ultimately a game of two halves here.
Yeah, it wasn't down now because it was down Schumann their own game, but listening to it on the radio on the way, very, very surprising, and the way it started. Again, Dunmore are, I think, they're at a nice age now. A lot of those guys would have worked with a good few of them over the years, between minors and 20s. They're at that kind of mid-20s now, and are again around. Have had good campaigns, no more than that, more. I know it ourselves from going through it. You go through an intermediate campaign, you win it, you go to Connacht and stuff like that, and you get a lot of experience. Now they're a couple of years through, years senior, so again they're well seasoned, and Gargiolini is there, still with them. A good guy obviously, and a good trainer. So they'd see the likes of Moycullen as a big game for them. Again, with the structure, the way it is this year, they'd see the first game as they'd be kind of Moycullen mightn't be at it, and all that's the way it worked out, and they almost got over the line. They got pipped. You know what I mean? So again, not surprising to me, anyways. When I look at the players on both teams, we can always say, Moycullen, but Moycullen's and the Salthills and these guys, they want to be Burns in 6-8 weeks' time. That's when they want, in the knockout stages. So there are opportunities for shocks, and there was definitely there the last day, and obviously Dunmore targeted that and did everything right, except maybe towards the end, whatever, you know what I mean? So so Dunmore are a good solid team now coming, good players, again, a lot of experience there as well, so look at, I'd say they'd be disappointed with that now, and as long as that, they don't want that to define them now as a hard luck story. They need to kind of dust themselves down now and get on with it, you know what I mean? Because
it's just heartbreaking, the goal at the end, like kicked into the square, it's only natural, I suppose. They'll have regrets over that in the next few days now.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that's part of the learning process of, any players to deal with that, and how they deal with that, and the management and all that sort of stuff. So that's another challenge for them. And hopefully he galvanize them, you know what I mean, because they're well worthy to be up there. So, but yourself, 4 teams will be dragged into that in a couple of months' time. So long season, and that's where the the managers get their, need to get everything right for that. And so that's something definitely Gary will have to deal with over the next couple of weeks, but I'm sure they will. And they'll come back stronger,
A big one too, Jonathan, for Moycullen to find a way. Only 2 points in the first half from Tom Clark and Niall Walsh against the Breeze, down 1-8 to 2 points, down Neil Mulcahy, Sean Kelly, and Peter Cook as well. But to find a way, and even on counter like Johnny Maloney was immense in the second half. And I was only chatting to someone after the game, like, when was the last team, a club team, came from 9 points down to win a game in the Galway Club Football Championship as well?
Yeah, out of curiosity, like I only heard bits and pieces. I was finishing up in Pearse Stadium, and as you can imagine, a wall of a match reports after a busy weekend. So I had stuck in the laptop for a while. The Breeze must have been a huge significant factor there, was it? Like
Yeah, big time. I've
Yeah.
never seen it as strong in Kenny Park, and I was only watching on the stream. Like it looked
Yeah.
like it really played a huge factor.
Yeah, well, that's a factor straight away. Like that's a couple of points, isn't it? I know there's the old saying, the wind never won anything, all that, but a breeze like that is going to have a significant factor. You probably have 3-4 points down minimum to that. Really, look, was this a shock that Dunmore run them so close? No, not in the slightest. I think anybody expected this. I openly said it at the time. I actually think we were asked on Galway Bear there to speak, to pick dark horses, and Dunmore would be mine. I just think, as Donal has touched on there, what they've come through in the second season in back in senior football, and they have a huge tradition as well, which again holds a lot of weight in the argument. But as well as that, most importantly, they've an abundance of quality there, and a lot of younger quality coming through. And the likes of Colin Costello in particular is another kind of one of the most that bunch of exciting forwards in the county. And they're also, Gary Delaney has them ultra really well drilled. Like so many managements, like we're blessed with so many good, well coached teams as well. Particularly, you have a dabble across, and you look at other county championships. I think we're well on par, more than holding our weight in terms of the quality of management and how well prepared our teams are. And no more so than Dunmore McHale's. They'll be, as I touched on earlier, they'll be gutted that they didn't get a point or two after half time, just to stem that tide of the weight. And I still thought they had the hard work done at the end, and it's just cruel the way that goal went in. And yeah, it's just weird, isn't it? The dynamic of sport changes in one boot up in the air. Was it mishit? Was it meant to go there? The flick, the way it came down, it seemed to creep over the line as well. There's players trying to claw back over. You're really looking for, with the Premier League being back, to see the goal line technology. But that sort of circumstances. But had they got the draw, they would have been crested the wave. They would have been chests out the whole way through. Now it's how do they pick themselves up after this? And like the one thing that they know, like for definitely even prior to the game, is like they're going to be playing James's next. Just the way the restructure with the draw in that game, it goes back by default instead of the winners. Obviously, with a draw, it takes that out of the equation, so it's back to old school 1v4, 2v3. But that's a huge game. Like that already is going to be one of the games of round two. St James's against Oranmore McHale's. Both sides trying to pick themselves up a bit. Will probably do more so. But what a game of football that is going to be. They're two excellent sides. I think Dunmore have more than enough to steady the ship. They've been in difficult situations before. They were reacted well, but really exciting game by all accounts. And that group again is.
Yeah, just on that, I'll obviously ask you about the other game because you were doing commentary on it in James's and Monavea. You mentioned earlier on James's goal went 7-up. Monavea came back. McDade was really influential in the second half. Glenn Kelly was really influential as well towards the end. Was a draw a fair result in that?
I heard both managers talk to each other afterwards, and they said it was a draw. So I'll be guided by their expertise. It probably was a weird game to try and put your head around it, because you really felt worried at one stage for Monavea. Are they going to even get a score here? Is this going to be really embarrassing? That's the way the mindset was going, because James's were playing phenomenal football and they were absolutely cruising it. 7-up after 22 minutes. The couple of Glenkenny scores just before half time were pivotal. I can only imagine the conversation that Bunty had with them at half time. You had a good chat with them afterwards as well. I'd imagine it was the "I told you so, this is what you're capable of, you need to keep this going forward." the sending off had a big impact, a huge impact on the game. But at the same time, the last Connery free had edged the back in front, and it was a wonderful run from Philip Muldowney. He literally got the ball and ran and ran and ran, and then it's a tap over free at the end. But Kelly, he's exceptional. Like, he's buried the goal well, nailed a couple of frees, those two in particular before half time. But at the same time, he missed. No, they weren't gimmies, swirling breeze and all that. But 2 or 3 frees for him that he'd probably be disappointed that he'd probably score another day. So maybe they're saying then as well, maybe they could have edged the way forward. Probably one of those games where both sides feel like they left a little bit behind, and maybe by default then a draw is the fair result. But that Group 2 is, everyone talks about Group 4 being the most even. Group 2 is very much in that same genre as well, particularly because despite Moycullen getting the win and getting over the line, still so many unknowns, isn't there, really, with them? And they're still, for all the avalanche of riches that they have in terms of players, they're still missing their bigger ones, and then that obviously has a big impact. So it's still not the Moycullen that we will see in the business end of the championship, and that just it steadies the lines a little bit closer there as well. So another group that's
feels like it's going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, insanely exciting group. Yeah, really, really exciting group.
Just on to Group 3, then, Donal. Everyone will talk about Oughterard running Kerfin very close at the weekend, 12-8 in the end. But then you see that Kerfin bring Bernard Cohen and Conor Carson into the starting 15, leave Dylan McHugh and Patrick Egan on the bench, and it already seems frightening.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it. It's I would look too much into especially with the likes of Kerfin, who have the panel and their intermediate team gave Williams down a clipping as well over the weekend. So I would look too much into that. From a Oughterard perspective, I suppose the performance would have been very good, would give them hope going forward. Because again, as I said, there's going to be 4 teams in relegation, and you know what I mean. So people want to stay out of that. James is in Monavea, and you know what I mean. And one of those as well would be probably saying, look, you can get caught. You get caught and dragged into this thing, and it's you need to be careful. So you need to get it right and get through the. One team is going to be at the bottom of every group, and there's a couple of teams there that wouldn't expect to be there. They probably will be there in the next few weeks. So Oughterard, the performance I think for them will be. This is their championship. In the next few weeks, Kerfin's will be in 8 or 9 weeks' time or whatever. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't look too much in Kerfin. Have an abundance of riches there. So they'll have no trouble obviously getting through the group. They'll want to finish top, and then the fun will begin then the quarterfinals when the draws and stuff like that. But Oughterard, they seem to be going well enough. They've again a lot of talent there. So their next game will be a big one for them. So this might give them confidence, hopefully.
It does feel like, Donal, when the Kerfin didn't have Jason Leonard and Dylan Canny, they had them obviously back there at the weekend, and since they weren't playing last year, they nearly feel like new players.
Yeah, that's it. And last year they did well last year as well, because forwards and the better teams will see that as championship goes on, to close them down and close down size C and get in their faces and all that sort of stuff and stop their runners. There's again, coaches will be looking at that as well. So guys that put the ball over the bar are very, very important. We know that, and these guys coming back, with Burke Donal as well. So they're so important to them, because they're looking at obviously winning the county championship and further on as well. You know what I mean? So that'll be their goal, and they'll see the Crow Park and all that sort of stuff as well. So look at all those quality players that they get back are very, very important. But look at time will tell, and we'll see how they go in the next few weeks. But I'd be very surprised if they didn't come through.
Even to bring Bernard Cohen and Conor Carson in, like, you've obviously worked with Conor at juvenile level with Galway, and Bernard was only part of the 20s panel. Like, they're not weakening things at all.
No, especially Bernie. Bernie's a fantastic player, in my opinion. He's a great player, and Conor as well. Great. Like, if they were in any other club, they'd be centre backs and full backs, and or most other clubs and stuff like that. So that's an abundance of riches, because again, those guys were playing into County Cup a couple of years ago. So haven't seen much of them since, obviously, but they'll be developing away and all I know is their character, and they're fantastic guys as well. Those two definitely. So I'm sure Kevin, that's a big part of it in Corofin as well. There's a lot of footballers come through Corofin, a lot of good footballers that don't make it through, and so it's difficult. You have to stick at it, because for such a big big parish and all that sort of stuff, the standards are so high. So the likes of Conor Carson and the Bernie Cones and these guys that are coming through are obviously doing the work behind the scenes, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be next on the earth. It's as simple as that. And I've seen footballers come through in Corofin or that haven't come through, that would have, been touted as good footballers over the years, and they haven't. They obviously weren't doing the work that was required. The standards weren't high enough, and that's so there's high standards there. And so those guys are obviously doing the work. If not, they wouldn't be there. So you can be sure that they're there on merit in a club like that. It's not the same in every other club where guys might get away with a little bit more because they're talent and all that. That doesn't happen in Corofin. So look, at there's an abundance of young lads that are coming through. And Roscoe, I know, was on the intermediates as well. He had a fantastic year this year as well, and probably one to look in the future as well. So yeah, there'll be a force or another wife, all that, most definitely.
With that, Jonathan, Bernard Power obviously pulls off 2 fantastic saves in the second half. Obviously, if they're there to win that, you felt like they had to get one of those. They're already trailing by 5 at half time. It was 4 in the end, but they just needed one of those goals to win. Yeah,
and I think, look, Bernard Power, I think, was probably the best goalkeeper performance in the senior championship over the course of the weekend. And big moments, but that's what Corofin are. They are a team of big moments, and for me, what I just find frightening, and Donal and yourself there have discussed the strength and depth. But when you see a player that experienced and has quality of Ronan Steed playing with the intermediate side, that just makes me go, wow. Like, is there another club in Ireland that happens with? Maybe some of the big super clubs, but
particularly a player who was with Galway 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose maybe it sums up the rise of Patrick Egan, where they kind of flip roles last year after Ronan's injury. But even still, thinking back to the league final this year, Ronan still had a big impact on that game. You'd still fancy him having a big impact in the senior championship, probably more so at the business end of it for Corofin. But that's just ridiculous strength in class, isn't it? And they, as Donal touched on there as well, such a well-run club. Look, they're blessed with a huge pick, but my God, they make the best out of it, and they're such good structures and such good discipline involved, and it's no surprise that they continue to churn out quality player after quality player, and for me, they're considerably best than the rest at Galway. And I think if you're Corofin, I think you're thinking back to the Bridges game last year, where probably ultimately very disappointed with your performance in the game, probably left behind, and maybe you saw how far Bridges went in. And is that a case of where Corofin are looking at it again? I really think it is, because it's that good of a side. And
just on that, it was interesting to hear Kevin after the game say we're trying to find our best team. That feels like the biggest challenge for them at the minute.
It is, because I said to Kevin after the league final, how are you going to enjoy the challenge of, you have won the league again, but then you have just a raft of intercounty players come back off the senior panel. I love that. I love the challenge. But it is a challenge. But it is the reason for me as well. Like, county players are a different level compared to what you have at club level. But often in the club championship, you watch a county player, and if you didn't necessarily know, you sometimes wouldn't pick up, because they're usually tagged or by someone else, or they're taken out of the game. Often the case. I think what wins you championships is the best of the rest, really. I think that's why Corofin are blessed, because look, they're the team that's won the league again repetitively, because they have that strength and depth, that quality, and then they have the luxury of just kind of dropping in the diamonds of the intercounty players. Where the intercounty players, there's not like you're playing with maybe a smaller club where that player comes back in and expected to take the kick out, go out in the middle of the pitch, catch it and drive it into himself and put it into the net. That type of situation. They have that such solid foundation in place already, that class, that style of play, etc., and then they drop in the X factor on top of it. That's for me, and particularly this year, where it's that very short turnaround with intercounty players. Any lad that's been in with Galway this year it's been a long year, so many games, it's been energy sapping. The way the All Ireland final went, such a short turnaround. There can't be at 100% going into the club game. So that's why the likes of Corofin, for me, still, because they're not as reliant, ultimately, they're not reliant on their intercounty players as most other sides are.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't have that strength and depth. They can afford to do that, unlike some other clubs. Just in the other game in Group 3, Donal, it felt yesterday that Claregalway really came age. They were ahead by 5 points. Tuam got a goal late on from Jamie Murphy, still producing it at this level. But to respond in that period where Conor Campbell lands one for fullback, it was a really insurance score, but it was a big result because I know people will talk about Claregalway and potential, but there's still some of these players yesterday who are playing who are still quite young for senior club football.
Yeah, looking through the team, actually, that's the thing that actually stood out to me. Oh, there is a lot of young guys there that are, I suppose there has been a lot of talk over the years, but there seems to be a bit of a new team or a bit of a new nucleus to it. You know, the old guard, the Jack Glynns and these guys, old Jack been old, but you know, those guys in Conor Campbell have been around for maybe a few years. You know, I see Luke O'Connor, Dara Whelan, you know, great player as well. We had him on a 20th panel there in 2020, I think, and as well. So, you know, great hurler and, you know, brilliant footballer as well. Luke O'Connor's there, Jack Lanigan, these guys, you know what I mean, again, Owen Morgan, in him on, and you know, these are kind of new kind of breed, I think, coming through over the next few years. So again, they would be hoping that they could push on and get, you know, I suppose get maybe to a quarterfinal, semi-final, you know, and build on that. I don't see them as maybe challenging maybe the top 3 or 4.
Why don't you see that yet?
I like we talked about their Corofins, and I don't think they have the experience for that yet. I think the standard is in Galway club football at the business end, you know, at the top 3 or 4. You know, they could go on a run and get to a semi-final, final. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they couldn't win it. Of course they could, but I just couldn't see it with the other guys that are there, the Moycullen'S, you know what I mean, the Salt Hills and stuff. I think the physicality will be a big thing for them as well, that once it gets to semi-finals and finals and stuff, that they might struggle a little bit there. But definitely talent-wise, that, you know, a few years down the line, maybe definitely you would see, you know, these guys maybe pushing on. But not for me at the minute now. I wouldn't see them. I see them as maybe quarterfinal, semi-finalists maybe. But definitely the talent is there. It's a lot of young talent there at the minute, and again, you know, need a couple of years of it maybe at senior football to really kind of push on, you know. I wouldn't see them at the minute now as being real contenders for, you know, for talking about who's going to win it. You know, it's Corofin, Moycullen, probably, you know, Salthill, you know, Montpellier maybe, you know what I mean, James, and you know, I'd have them maybe a little bit ahead maybe at the minute. But what do I know?
Particularly on that, Donald, though, it's a good position for them now to be in, that they get to play Corofin next, and then they maybe know more so where they actually are in relation to competitors.
Yeah, well, look, I know I use that comment myself where we're at, and not, but like within the group and the management group and the players, you know, I'm sure there's an honesty of they know where they're at themselves. Yes, they want to test them against Corofin, but like if they're to be honest with themselves over the next few years, maybe it might be, you know what I mean, whatever happens against Corofin, you know what I mean, to learn from that, and that they're buying into that they're not buying into a 1 year thing. It's a 3 or 4 year thing, or that's what I would see from the outside, looking at Claregalway, that there is potential there, but we have to be realistic. We got to put the work in. You know what I mean? You don't just come and win a county final. Like it takes years and years of work behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Obviously they're doing that. They have the underage success. Yeah, that box is ticked. Now they have to put a group together that is going to, I suppose, row together and you know, put in the work behind the scenes themselves, and then hopefully, you know, get to a quarterfinal, semi-final, a bit of luck then, and push on and maybe win it at some stage. That's the way I would see the next Claregalway. They have that potential, but potential is it's you know, it's an easy word to be bandied around. There is a lot of work that goes behind the scene, and you know, the management have a lot of a role to play in that as well. Whatever management you know, that is there at the time. over the next couple of years. I think that will be important to keep a structure there. And then I think they'll have a chance of winning the county title, I think. But until that happens, you know what I mean, games against Corofin and stuff like that are part of the process, part of the development. And only if you're, you know what I mean, learning from it. And hopefully they will. So there's a lot of good players, a lot of good talent on paper, a lot of good guys on that panel,
Yeah, best wishes as well to Darren Hennessy in that game. He picked up what looks like a very serious injury. So just hopefully he's all right. And Jonathan Tombstairs will be disappointed in one sense that they couldn't salvage a draw at the end of that match.
Yeah, because look, again, they probably would have targeted as well. Tuam, I don't know, it's like not quite the nearly men, but there's just something missing there, isn't there? Like, I was only talking to someone today, like, even you just think back of the last two respective league finals, both of them, they left behind to Corofin. Last year, a free and at the end of extra time to level or to give them the lead, then lose the penalty shootout. And even this year, they were in control, I thought, for periods, and it was a goal again at the end. And just, it's like the team that has to get over the line. And once you get over the line, then maybe it's the domino effect. But until then, just seems to be something. I don't know what it is, but that's a game that got to be targeted to win first day out. Probably a similar quality team in a probably similar type of condition and strength and quality, etc. And they'll be bitterly disappointed with their performance there. I didn't see anything of this myself, just hearing bits and pieces on the radio, but that's the consensus I've heard from chatting to people that were at it, and that's a real kick in the teeth. Not the way they would have anticipated starting the I suppose the campaign off. New management there with Dave Donal, and after the good work that he had done with Barna, they've got to be really frustrated with that one. And the only hope on saving grace is that Corofin are that bit on top of that pile. I think the battle for second and or third is going to be insane, this group.
Yeah, 2 minutes there is massive now.
It's ridiculously important. And Oughterard, I've said it so many times, I didn't see this one before. Again, from what I've heard, was that more of the defensive setup that we've seen from them over the years. And that Corofin game, I think it appeared to be the same type of performance against Corofin that we've seen, 2 or 3 years now, or the last couple of times, and it's gone the same way. Ultimately, that game plan gets you so far and doesn't get you over the line, and particularly against Corofin, they will pass the ball to death. They will keep it. They'll patient. They don't care if it's 1 or 20 points that they win by, but they're not going to feed into, and they have enough quality to get over the line, no matter how good defensively you are trying to be set up. But oh my God, that game is. I talked about earlier games, but that's just absolutely insanely important, is it? Like, because if you both sides into their second round after they've committed their second round of games without a win, real uphill task. But again, I keep coming back to it, but the structure of the format of the competition now, these round 2 games are just humdingers all around, and no more so than that one as well. Like, what a battle that's going to be. The importance of that is something incredible, because whoever loses in a relegation battle, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's with the way the group says first, second, third, and fourth. It's actually, I know people might give out about 3 coming out, but I think it's actually brilliant because every team in the group has something to play for.
And the importance, Paul, is, sorry to put in, unlike the intercounty setup, and I don't know why they haven't implemented this, but the fact that it's the winners play each other and the losers play each other, it means that by and large there's not going to be a dead rubber in the last round of games. So like it's vitally important just to flag that out as well. Like we've seen a lot of dead rubbers in the intercounty setup towards the end. I got to commend whoever's involved there, the football committee, that for making that tweak and putting that in play, because that adds to the excitement and will add to the excitement in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, and every club with it's guaranteed 4 championship games, which is only fair too. Just then, finally, to get on to Group 4, Donal, just coming to you about Milltown and Killannon. Milltown 113, Killannon 11 points, O'Manion 7 points. I was in at it. He was excellent. It's almost like every year you kind of at the start of the championship, you might have this lingering doubt over Milltown, and maybe I did, and I'll say I was wrong there because I was. They're just exceptional. Like they just keep maximizing what they have every single year in, year out.
Yeah, they're battle hardened. Looking at the team, the same names cropping up all the time. You know what I mean? They're fantastic, in fairness. Yeah, look at it. It's a great win for them to start off again. Look at Killennan. Both of them are well battled, well hardened over the years at senior games and well used to these sort of senior games. So it would have been one they would have targeted. So Milltown would be delighted with that. And was it last year? Every year they went as far as the semi-final. Was it last year, the year before?
Last year, yeah.
Last year, yeah. You know what I mean? So they'll be thinking that again, and that they can get, the next game. You know what I mean? They're in a group maybe that might be a little bit, I won't say easier, but it's, there isn't huge hitters in it maybe. So they'll be thinking, look at, win the next couple of games, and you wouldn't know where that might take you. Killannon, on the other hand, Kevin Walsh, I think, is in there as well. Gay O'Brien this year. So they'll be kind of licking their wounds a little bit over this one out. They would have fancied themselves, I'd imagine, there, as Milltown would as well. It would have been a 50-50 game from the outside anyways. But they'll need to kind of circle the wagons now a little bit as well, because it's not easy now with the new format, so the next games are, as Jonathan said there, it's, what I mean, the next games are exciting now because of the way things have, or the way the format is. So yeah, look at it. It was a fantastic win for Milltown. They'll be delighted with that.
What's the secret down there, so Jonathan?
Well, start listening, Paul. How many times do I have to tell you? I don't know. Maybe it's back to what I touched on earlier. Jose Mourinho and the football and heritage. But we laugh and joke, but that is a factor, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like if you some of the stuff before, and not having jerseys, and stuff like that, it doesn't add up. And the pick and missing a couple of bodies as well, and it defies logic. And you take the second half, down a man. And they outscore Killallen 8 points to 3, 10 points to 3 over the course of the second half as a whole.
Because it did feel like in the first half, Killallen were in control.
It absolutely was. Killallen were flying, and maybe there's an element there of the Killallen side. If they've given the opportunity straight away. I don't know whether it's by default or not, but that under 20 side from last year. Look at the midfield: Darragh Walsh and Ryan Roach, straight up, the two of the stars from that county championship winning side. They're with the middle field. And maybe it was that possibly a little bit of inexperience in the second half of the game was in the melting pot. And look, you're going against an absolute warrior of Carl Blake. He's just rolling back the gears. You were in there, I think. You saw some of the balls that he was catching. It just defied logic, belief. You'd nearly question your eyesight at times, but I don't know. He just rolls back the years. There's no other way to describe that. And then look, Owen Mannion shot the lights out. The goal was so important, because you touched on there, Paul. Killallen were really motoring. I was so impressed with the two young midfielders at the start, particularly Darragh Walsh. That bomb that he got before half time in as well. But the goal just kept Milltown in the game. I know Killallen went on and got a couple of scores and finished the half strong. And then, look, you had the black card before half time that for me should have been a red, because it's that weird situation where the referee indicates, he puts the elbow up like this when he's awarded the black card, which is a strike, and then he flashes out the black. With two of those in Per Stadium on Sunday, and then how James Kane got away with a yellow card for
stop
Damien Comer. I just defies logic. It was the definition of a black card, and had Anna Down not got over the line, there would have been killings for that one, not having your goalkeeper for such a pivotal time of the game. But thankfully, maybe there's a little bit of karma that they got the goal off the next kick out, I think. So maybe that's a little karma coming around. But there were two little head scratchers. But Milltown dug in, found a way, and will be very, very pleased with that performance. It's a big ask now. Mark Kerr will be suspended, you would imagine, after that red card. And Owen Mannion won't get that same amount of space. Your full back line and down was quite solid, I thought, yesterday. Full back was really good. I thought,
All that full back line's under the age of 21 for Annadown.
Yeah, and they're strong. There's biting them. They come out with the ball. They attack it really hard. And look, O'Mani now is going to go into a situation where he's going to be a bit of a marked man. So maybe it's going to have to be a little change of play. The one thing Milton have is raw pace though as well, and we saw that even when Killeallen were dominating the first half, they got the goal and they had another 2 half goal scoring opportunities from a similar sort of situation of just hard raw runs. And even there was another time for that black card where Costello was gone again when he got clipped. Even prior to Marquer getting the red card, he got clipped on the counter attack when he was trying to come forward in the second half as well. There is a bit of a running raw edge to the side. But look, this group, because of Milltown's seeding, it's probably a false top seed if we're being brutally honest. Like, nobody fears Milltown in the top seed of that. It's the most even group in terms of experience. But I suppose the one thing that Milltown were quite clever, and you probably have to commend new manager Jimmy Lyons, is yes, they did have the red card, but they were playing with the breeze, so they really they nearly nullified the extra man by squeezing the Jesus out of the kick out, and it was clever play, I thought, and it just didn't allow the bit of momentum for Killeallen to come, and they'll be bitterly disappointed with only 3 points in the second half. I think a couple of those were from the bench as well, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely Luke Carr's one, he came on, if I'm not mistaken. So their starting forwards never got motoring in the second half. Killeallen have to be bitterly disappointed with that. They'll have to dust themselves down. But the one thing that will give them a bit of hope is just how even that group is going to be. Milton on a down now is going to be humdinger.
Just that you were doing that down game, obviously after that as well. It felt like when Annadown got it back to 1 point with 18 minutes left, playing with the breeze as well, that they were kind of going to find a way.
To be honest with you, I felt at half time that Annadown would just have a bit more football in the second half with the elements. Barna was a very well drilled team, and they do have some players that catch the eye. And Gormley continues to catch the eye. I thought Sean Donal was really good. Tom Curran as well. I think he got the majority of their scores. But you just felt they probably had to work a bit harder for their scores than Annadown had. Look, obviously, when you have a superstar of Damien Comer off top, that helps as well. That was quite the battle between himself and Sean Fitz. But it just felt there was a bit more football in Annadown. And I always said at half time that I just fancied them to have enough to get over the line. They were clever in the first half against the element. I thought Jack Dowd touched on an ocean of football, really. Every little pass seemed to nearly go through him. I thought he's quite effective. And they've a bit of raw runners and a little bit of impact on the bench as well. You saw was it Johnny Creven come on? He got the last point from one end of the pitch to another after the couple of Hail Marys in around the house. But Hegarty for me was probably...
He did terrific for the goal to come across.
Outstanding, yeah. And even still, when it wasn't necessarily going their way, obviously Comer will get the headlines. What did he end up in the end? 1-4, I think. Comer, I think, ends up with. But Hegarty just kept them going as well. And I was, obviously everyone will know Damien Comer and will catch the eyes, but I thought Hegarty really stood out for me in terms of his impact. Also, tough one for Barna. But again, look, I repeat what I said with Killeallen here. The group was so wide open that, look, themselves in Killeallen, that's going to be another talk about battles. There's some really exciting games in the second round here, isn't there, lads? And look, Milton Annadown would probably have a little bit of a revenge on their mind from last season. Daylight robbery in Tuam Stadium last year, the truth be told. And they'll probably want to undo that. But the group, very, very nicely. It's the most open group, maybe aside from group 2, but definitely this one has another element to it because there's just no fear between any of the sides.
There's a bit of threat now inside, even when I was looking at the down line yesterday, Donal, Damien Comer, Frankie Burke and Stephen Curley inside now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no one option. Like, even when I thought Damien Comer was quite clever at times, he was obviously tagged by Sean Fitz. And there's a couple of stages, particularly in the first half, he just runs into the corner. He runs after the wing, just creating space inside. I thought it was quite clever. And I go back to what I said about Corfin, when you're able to have that foundation and then throw in the inter-county players as opposed to being every ball having to be kicked into Damien, that just gives you a total different dynamic.
It makes that group interesting, Donal, now, particularly between Annadown and Milltown in the next game.
And Barna Killeallen for me would be a huge one. You know what I mean? That's one that stands out now for me because Barna, I thought played well, and they're missing a couple of guys. Obviously, Keane Hearn is missing, and I know that as well. So look at there's any amount of them now that'll be played in a couple of weeks' time, but that's definitely one. So whoever loses that one will be looking over their shoulder a little bit. But look at Clan are strong, and they've that under 21 panel. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys coming through. So you know what I mean? They'd be expecting to maybe push on in the next couple of years. You know.
Just quickly before we move on to the intermediate, before a question or when a question came in here from the listener, and just before we move on to the intermediate, I'll get you to give me the answer in one word. Donal, in one word, dark horses for the championship this year.
From the seniors,
yeah,
the dark horses now. That's a good one. Our Salthill dark horses. Maybe Salthill might like we're all saying Corofin, I assume. Sorry, not putting one word, but you know what I mean. Like probably sorry, not putting words in the season.
Well, I think anyone outside of Corofin dark horses really, when you consider it.
Yeah, I think Salthill, if you know what I mean, once it gets to the business end, might you know what I mean, have the guns. If obviously if Rob is okay and all that sort of stuff, have the guns to hurt them. I think, but look, we'll see how it goes.
And Jonathan, for you, dark horses?
Yeah, look, I had this conversation with the Galway Bay preview there a week or two ago, and some people were saying Salthill, they're not. There's no world that they are a dark horse in the county final 2 years ago. Look at the quality of players that they have on the structure and the players they've added as well. I'll stick to who I said that night, and maybe the shock factor is off them when they nearly got over the line yesterday in Kenny Park. But more for me, if you're talking about someone outside of the group that's maybe unexpected to go a bit far, their Jameses I think are also in that bracket. I know you give them a bit of a clip there in the rankings, but still for me they're one of the most dangerous sides when they can get going. If they can get that consistency to play for that level for that 22 minutes or so that they were playing with over closer to the hour, they'll be very, very dangerous. And look, any team that has, look at the experience that they have there as well. Johnny Dewan at the back, Paul Connery in the middle of the field, to name but two. And that type of genre for me. But I'll stick with my early prediction of Dunmore McHale's.
Yeah, well, just on James there, Jonathan. Sorry, Paul. They have a good mixture at the minute. We spoke about the age profile of teams, and I think at the minute with the way Paul is there and Johnny and the age that they're at, the next year or two, I think is important for them to make a push and to get somewhere or get a good bit in the championship or a long way or whatever their goal is. I don't know, maybe win the championship, because the guys that are coming through, the Jack Folans and Nolans and all these guys coming through as well, they're young, so they'll need that experience. And you know, the Conrays and the Duans, they're not going to last forever either. So I think the next couple of years are important for them as a group to push on and to really try and make hay now while they have the likes of Paul, you know what I mean, at the standard that he is at the minute. He's playing probably the best football of his career at the minute. So I think then they you know, with Sam O'Neill and Jack and those guys coming through as well. So they are definitely, you know what I mean, if they get things right, can shock a few as regards, you know, take a few scalps or whatever, you know, on any given day, you know.
Yeah, so just here on the intermediate rankings, before I touch on this question, obviously came in, what's thoughts on the new Anadale manager? Norman O'Brien's obviously in charge, came in from Kilconnelly. I think it's a great appointment. You can already see his influence on the team, so hopefully Anadale can build on that in the next round. The intermediate rankings is safe to say where I was getting plenty of texts being reminded of my rankings in the opening week, and a Calgary player left a text for me as someone asked Shaughnessy for the lotto numbers. So yeah, that was that was a nice text to get. But I don't actually do the lotto. Maybe I might need to start now. But on the intermediate rankings, no team is in the same place from the opening week, so safe to say lots of shocks, but I'll just go through it and get the lads' thoughts. So Kilconnelly in first place, up 3 places. Oranmore in second place, they're up 5 places. Calgary in third, up 4 places. Glenmady in fourth, up 2 places. Michael's down 4. in fifth. Clifton up 6 places after their big win over Brendan's. Kerfin B up 6 places after their big win over Williamstown as well. Courtney Shamrocks got by Kilkerran up 2 places. Brannock's down 7 after their heavy defeat to Caltra. Gabriel's up 5 places after their narrow victory over Spittle, and Spittle just beneath them down 8 places. Illinoran, they're down 6 places after defeat to Kilconnelly. Brendan's down 5 places in 13th. Kilkerran down 3 places. Menlaw up 1 and Williamstown down 2. There's obviously plenty of movement here, Donal, but it's just the way with the intermediate championship was over the weekend.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of maybe shocks, I suppose, but look, when you analyse it, we spoke off air in relation to the intermediate championship, and it's a fantastic championship, has been for years. The system we're talking about here with the senior, the 4 in a group, that's been there for a good while. Not the system the way it is at the minute, but the 4 in the group has been there for a long time, and that's a good system. And I think when you're looking at the rankings you have there, Paul, there are, in my opinion, there's 6 or 7 teams probably that could win the intermediate championship. And going on the first week, wouldn't look too much into the first week. But there are Kilconnelly, obviously lost a couple of finals and stuff like that. They're, a couple of points there, but they'll be, after their win over the weekend, they'll be going on, I'd say, to get back to county final as well. But look, there's a lot of strong intermediate teams there. A lot of Caltra, seen Caltra over the weekend, very, very impressive against Micheál Brannocks. Didn't see the Oranmore game, but listen to Jerry's interview afterwards, and they have a relatively young team, so they're, they're building, but it was a great win for them, especially against Moycullen'S, who are well seasoned. Glenamaddy, a well seasoned team as well. We're knocking on the door for the last couple of years, and I think they only lost to Kilconnelly was the last year. Moycullen'S obviously down from senior, going well in Division 1, so that was probably a bit of a surprise. But again, we'll have to see how that goes. They'll regroup, no doubt. Corofin again, and Clifton had a fantastic win. So they're probably delighted about that as well. So Corofin, you don't know what's going to happen there in relation to losing guys and stuff like that. They're going to be strong. Whether they get any weaker, maybe not. They might lose 1 or 2, maybe, I don't know. And like every team we've been talking about so far have a chance of winning this competition, in my opinion. So Cartoon, Rannox started very poorly because of that game down, and she started poorly the last day, and we're kind of playing catch up all through, and did very well, played very well in the second half of the first half. Got kind of a sucker goal at the end, which kind of, I think, brought it back to 7 again, going in at half time or something like that. So that kind of, and they toiled and they tried, and Caltra kind of hit them on the break a little bit. So look at Brannocks are still in the top 3 or 4 in my opinion as well, because they'll learn from that. Alan Octon, who had a fantastic game for Caltra, and more than what Jonathan said about Rowan Mannion, he'll be well marshalled probably at this stage, and if Brannocks had it over, maybe they might, have doubled up on him a little bit more. But in fairness to Alan and Owen as well, sometimes there are days like that when the ball comes in at the proper angle, he was turning and twisting and putting it over, and it was very difficult to mark him. So look at they played well, but look, it's a long road. Ourselves, on Spidgel are there, had a poor performance, I suppose, wasn't expected against Gabriel's. But again, I'd expect our guys to regroup. Hopefully with Liam O'Kelly coming back over the next couple of weeks as well, so he'll hopefully add on to that, to our panel, and maybe give them a lift, but they hopefully will be okay. Illinoran as well are, again, well seasoned, probably on the road a long time now, so, and have been, I suppose, at the business end for a good few years. So, and again, numbers for them, for those guys, is the same players all the time. So look at they're still, I suppose, a good strong outfit. Patrick Mark is out there this year as well, so there'll be a bounce probably in them as well. I'm very surprised at the Brendan's result myself personally. They've been on the last cup. That did surprise me. I'm not sure. I wouldn't know them that well, the way they are. Known a few of their players, obviously, but I'm not sure how they're going out there. So look at, I'm not sure in relation to them. Kilkerran, I know that was a tight enough game as well. So again, I think they're going pretty well as well. Menlough and Williamstown as well are, I suppose, will hope for better performances in round 2. So wide open, in my opinion. Again, as I said, 6 or 7 teams there that will be dusting themselves down after probably defeats or whatever and wins, and need to kind of maybe improve. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll see what happens.
It's the way the intermediate rankings there, Jonathan. There's going to be up and down here because, as Donal said, it's so open.
Oh, it's going to be dogfight of competition, really, isn't it? It reminds you a little bit of if you look across the water, the championship in England, just how ultra competitive it is, and everyone having the same dream of getting to the glory land. Yeah, no, I didn't see much intermediate football. I caught the most second half of Cortoon and Kilkerran in Milton. Really exciting game, actually. It was just a different dynamic, really, what we saw in Tuam Stadium in the senior. Was a bit more, maybe a little bit more old school. But a fine game, a real stereotypical local derby. So you've just trying to decipher these ones here. You've Michael's, who are top of the pile last week, was it?
Yeah,
they've taken the hit. Yeah, like it is, isn't there? Like you're looking a long way down that, and you're going, they have a chance. It's wide open, isn't it? That's the one thing that would strike you about this competition. Very, very even, very difficult to get I suppose a full pattern of the way things will develop, because every game is so important. The one big dynamic is Donal touch on there is just Corofane, like what way will their squad be hindered by the senior squad and players pull up and be ineligible after that. That's probably the biggest variable you can see there. After that, like the result that shocked me the most was Caltra, and what a performance that was. I know you've been reminded of that as well from a couple of people down that neck of the woods, but that was a lot of. I myself thought Brannock's would be one of the leading contenders this year, and they look, don't get me wrong, they probably still will be, but that's a bit of a blip in the road for them. They'll want to get things back on track again, but huge result for Caltra, and probably just sums up the way the whole opening weekend can go. And we talk about it being competitive in round 2 of the senior championship, no more so than here. And this round 2 is so pivotal, isn't it, of getting that, like it'll make or break a lot of teams here, because I think ultimately it's the same as top, it's the same structure. You want to be finishing top, you want to be trying resting up, because these games are so intense, and it's so even, and trying to pull a winner out of that is so difficult. You're probably still looking at the likes of Moycullen'S and Kilconnelly, aren't you? You think, but then you just don't know what way the draw will go there as well. But Kilconnelly are so unfortunate the last couple of years. Like the GIF was quite a battle between themselves and Monavea last year, wasn't it? And they're just a little bit unfortunate. They're not getting over the line, but they're building again there. So yeah, I suppose in summary, a really, really exciting intermediate championship.
Donal, just for it to go through the results here, I'll go to one game for each. Just on Clifton and Brendan's, Clifton 113, Brendan's 8 points. We talked about how that was a surprise, but I suppose for Clifton, the big boost there is to get Ger Gibbons back.
Yeah, exactly. They seem to, our fellas played them in a challenge as well there a few weeks ago, and they were very impressed with them as well, and they beat us as well that day. So look, they seem to be, like, Ger Butler's gone back there this year. I just listened to Ger, I didn't see the game now, but listen to Ger's interview. He was delighted with it, and he was, the work that they were putting in and all that sort of stuff. He seemed to be, and Ger be a good football man, and you know what I mean. He wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't happening. So again, look, at not know where Brendan's are at the minute. I know, Donal Spinner for the last couple of years, I would have known him and spoken to him about Brendan, and they were in a good place there, say, the last 4 or 5 years, and we're pushing. Whether that has come to an end and they're kind of back into the pack a little bit more, I'm not sure. The result would suggest that. I wouldn't be sure what's going on there, but look at Clifton. You know what I mean. For football to be going, it's a difficult place back there with the rugby and the distance and traveling. An away game for Clifton is a real away game. You know what I mean. So it's great to see the likes of them and football flourishing back there. So I hope they do well back there, because it would be great for football in Clifton to kind of push on and get a bit of a run going. So yeah, it was a good one.
The other game, Jonathan, Kilconnelly won 12, Eleanor 7 points. Paul Mannion kicks 8 points. Emmett Sweeney kicks 1-1. It's a bit of a statement by Kilconnelly, though, to beat Eleanor by 8 points, considering they've met in so many semi-finals previously and it's always been so tight.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to the games they've had. Was it 2 years ago they played in this semi-final, I think?
They played last year too, as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last year again.
yeah.
Yeah. They've been quite close over the years. Yeah, look, that's a rugged, difficult Ireland side to beat as well. Like they've been close as well the last couple of years, and they're you don't want to go too stereotypical about it. They're in that group of the hunting pack that will be targeted winners and do have tangible aspirations of being that way as well. And look, it's just about the way the draw goes and the way any team to get a bit of momentum. But it's a big statement for Kilconnelly just straight away to put the disappointment of not just last year but the year before to one side, and to get off the mark in convincing and lay down, a little bit of a marker as well. So that certainly is a big result, and they already look like they'll take a bit of. I suppose they're aiming to get top spot there of that Group 1, and that's certainly going about it the right way to start things off.
I know, Donal, you were saying off air, it was a sore one for your boys to suffer, and yesterday on Spiddale against Gabriel 10-9 in the end. It's disappointing, no doubt, because coming down from senior, the way Gabriel's have went in the last few years, it was definitely one on Spiddale we're expecting to win.
Yeah, that would have been the chat beforehand. All right. Look at Gabriel's deserved their victory. We didn't play well. We stood off a little bit, in my opinion. We gave Gabriel's, we didn't push up and put them under enough pressure. And they grew into the game. They started well. They grew into the game. I was watching them in the warm up. Gabriel's, they seem well drilled, and you know what I mean. But our guys probably stepped off a little bit and just didn't get to the pitch of it, and kind of threatened. We had a goal chance towards the end with Killian O'Lee. He had a chance at the end that would have, I thought watching the game that we'd probably still win it, even though we were playing poorly, and that we'd probably get over the line by 2 or 3 points in the end, because it was a bit of a breeze and all that sort of stuff. So it just didn't happen. And as the game went on, Gabriel seemed to grow and grow and grow. And as they came out, there was very little pressure on them. So they were given time to go through a phase of passes that gave them the confidence. And then they had runners off the shoulder and got frees and, just got over the line, basically. So Ireland will be disappointed with that. But it's a setback, that's all. I don't think it'll impact. Well, I hope it will not impact the whole year, and won't be defined by this loss. So guys will have a chance to regroup now against Williamstown. It's a pity, because if we did, they would have targeted, obviously, to top the group. It would help, I suppose, with a game less, because our guys would be they'd be out week on week with the hurling as well, and have a big game now against Salt Hill next Saturday as well. So that's disappointed that way, but that's the way it is. You just get on with it, and we've a lot of experience in that team, and Liam Kelly hopefully to come back into it, and Finian is back, and Liam played well in patches the last day, but again got a lot of attention, and which he will as an intercounty player now. With Anthony is still there, so these guys will dust themselves down and hopefully get on with it. And it's the big one against Williamstown now in a week's time, because I know Williamstown played poorly, but they'll be looking at Gabriel's and saying, look at, if they can beat them, we can probably beat them. That kind of attitude, maybe. So it's it's a big one for Williamstown, so they'll have nothing to lose that way. So look at, hopefully our guys can perform a little bit better and just up the intensity a little bit. And if they do that, I think we'll be fine. Hopefully.
And Jonathan, it was no point to really saying otherwise. The other game, that Group 2, Kerfin cruised past Williamstown 2-13 to 5 points. Gary Kelly's 5 points that he scored for Williamstown. Yeah,
he's just a remarkable servant, isn't he? Seems to be playing forever, and still, I suppose, not quite the Lone Ranger, but certainly fighting the fight and carry the can for Williamstown, who they already look like, sadly, they're going to be in a relegation battle there, don't they? It's looking that way, sadly, from their perspective. Corfin just being in the group, I think, just changes the dynamic a bit, because just the quality that they can bring, I think it distorts it ever so slightly. And I think it is difficult. There's part of me thinking, look, it's brilliant for Corfin. They have this abundance of players, and they have this opportunity now, and look at the strength and depth that they have. you litter down through them so many players that would have played underage, etc. for Galway. But at the same time, when you're up against that little beast, for a small rural club like Williamstown, it is quite. There's part of me thinking is maybe not quite sure. Like we've seen this conversation are currently taking place in Camogie as well, with second teams in intermediate now next year not being allowed to take place in it. And you saw Cork win the intermediate this year on that. Isn't that the age-old, long-standing argument? Should a first team rural club be playing against, albeit a second team, but it's still a hugely, vastly more stronger side in terms of peak, etc. Probably conversation for another day, but it's tough on Williamstown that.
Group 3, one of the results as well of the weekend, Donal, Oranmore Maree 216, Michael's 19 points. Jonathan Kelleher's goal laid on the difference here.
Yeah, I suppose that people wouldn't be expecting that, especially Michael's going so well in the league this year. So look at Michael's are still probably one of the favourites to go up. Oranmore again didn't see this game now or anything, but again listening to Jerry on Galway afterwards, he was delighted, and he spoke about having a young team as well. So, but for Michael, they'll be disappointed with this now, because I think they have. I suppose with ourselves, when you come back straight back down like that, you have aspirations of, going back up. But the mindset needs to be right. You know what I mean? Everything needs to be right there. So they're definitely looking at their team as well. They definitely will be there or thereabouts. Kilconnelly themselves, maybe ourselves, Brannocks, definitely out of probably that 4 or 5. Or more would probably, after this win, me thinking, they get a run as well. Wouldn't be familiar with a lot of their players now, so I wouldn't be able to comment on how good or bad they would be. But with a performance like that and beating Michael's is, that's sitting down a marker, I think, for what's to come. I know our guys played them a couple of times in the league and came up second best, and they were missing a good few in those occasions. So look, at Oranmore's a big population, you know what I mean? So like I'm sure there's footballers coming through that we probably wouldn't have heard of yet. So we'll just keep an eye on them is the thing. That's what I was thinking. The first thing I thought when I seen that result.
It's a bigger result when you consider Conor Carroll isn't part of the panel, Alan Green's abroad, and Owen Garrity's just focusing on hurling.
On the hurling, yeah, exactly. But again, I suppose Jonathan touched on there, and we've been the same ourselves in the small rural club sort of thing. It's a different ball game, and you're looking at some of the rural clubs. It's the same guy has been churned out year on. You know what I mean? It can be for the likes of Oranmore or Clare Galway or stuff like that. They probably have more options in relation to filling those voids. I'd imagine. You know what I mean? And they have their challenges as well. I'm not saying, you know what I mean, and they have different sports, and you know what I mean. They've different challenges for different clubs. Small clubs. It's not just all small clubs have all the challenges and they don't have the players. It's not like that. City clubs, the Salt Hills and these guys, they have challenges as well of keeping players and stuff. You just have to look after your own ship, in my opinion. Get your structures right, get the coaching right, get the underage. You know what I mean? Do what you're supposed to be doing, trying to get guys to, as Corofin are doing. There are clubs probably around the country as big as Corofin, but they're not as successful as them. So structures right, all that sort of stuff is important, even for a Williamstown or for a Hunsborough Jail or for the smaller clubs. You know what I mean? Because there are good footballers everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of minding them and trying to entice them and keep them playing football for as long as you can. And you'll reap the reward then. So look at Michael's again. Are a good team, but more than ourselves. You know what I mean? They got stuffed at the weekend, so they have to kind of lick their wounds and come back at this as well, because we had tough years last year, up in senior coming down. So to get beat the first time as well, not good for the psychological factor is not great there. But no, look, it'll be interesting. Day 2 again will be very, very interesting in that group, I think. So look, we'll see how it goes.
It was important too, Jonathan, for Glenamaddy there. They've lost the last 2 quarterfinals after extra time, but just to get off to a good start with the nature of games against Oranmore and Michael's to come. Yeah,
it was just paramount really to get that victory. Glenamaddy, both sides under new management, and I didn't hear any reports, but I'm sure Mr. Curran was full of beans on the Minlaw sideline as well. keeping a bit of entertainment. I think something to keep an eye out over the course of the year. But yeah, a big result there for Glenamaddy. Definitely the result that would have targeted, takes the pressure off a little bit. You'd probably look at the big hitters in the group haven't played each other initially, although it's a different dynamic now with St. Michael's surprise result. Probably, yeah. But look, the more you think about it, and as Donal touched on there as well, certainly another one of the teams that will contend. But yeah, not just so important to get off the mark initially. And look, Glenamaddy will be another one of these teams that just will not lie down. Will be very difficult bet, and to be always involved in the last couple of years in the business end of the championship also. But it's tough. Menlough coming up first time. Everything I've said about Glenamaddy there is the reverse really for Menlough. They would have targeted that, and they're under a little bit of pressure now already. Just in the teams that they have to face next. It's with the 4-team group and the way the structure is, you lose your first game and you have a couple of heavy hitters in the group. It's a very difficult challenge after that.
You mentioned as well, John, you're Cortoon and Kilkerran in Group 4, Cortoon 3-9, Kilkerran 14 points. Joey Donlan just seemed to be central there for Cortoon. Yeah,
big time, and they really pulled it out of the fire in the second half. Very lively, entertaining game, I have to say. As I touched on it earlier, maybe a little bit more roll back the years a bit, maybe not as quite as structured in a way. It just led to a lot more of excitement of it. So real good game, particularly the first game in Tuam that I was at on Saturday was a bit of a slow burner there in terms of Salt Hill just having the control, and we're always at relative ease really against Montbellier by law. But they were two sides that pretty much they looked like they had analysed the hell out of each other and had a lot of structure. But this one was a little bit more off the cuff, and maybe not from the coaching perspective. Donal, with your coaching hat on, but as the neutral watching on, it added a bit more excitement. It was a bit more off the cuff, a bit more rough and tumble. Huge derby between the sides as well. A lot of heat on the pitch and the sideline as well, and everything that goes with it. Proper old school a game of football, lively game, but good result. And I suppose the goals ultimately were the damage there on that one.
Yeah, you find out with intermediate games, all right. There's less. Whether the guys aren't fit enough, or I don't know, to have the tactical battle that you would get at senior level. It's I know that just probably moving on to the Caltrim Micheál Brannach's game, but
yeah,
that I thought I was at that game and that was a fantastic game. And Tuam was lovely, and obviously new stand, there was nobody in it, but the setting was lovely. The sun, it was a real summer's day. It was a fantastic game, and the way Caltrim started was
Caltrim younger guns too, Donal, that really stood up.
Yeah, exactly. The chat was, I was talking to Gavin, I think, and he was saying that they would seem to be going well. Gabriel Actor is back in there again. Gabriel had plenty of experience over the years with Caltrim, would have been involved when they allowed all that sort of stuff. So they seem to be making a push. You know what I mean? That's the last couple of years maybe to make a push. So they would see themselves maybe in a few years maybe pushing on, this year as well, obviously, but they under the radar a little bit. Again, Brannachs have been thereabouts the last couple of years and would have a solid team as well, and Killeen going into the senior team and stuff like that, with all that chat. So, but look at Alan Acton had a fantastic game. Again, I spoke about it earlier there. He just seemed unmarkable the last day. So that was huge. That was huge. So good start for them. Again, Micheál Brannachs will be hoping to come back. Brannachs played well. Bar the first 15 minutes or however long it was when they were 1-4, I think it was 1-4-0 for a time there. They seemed just slow out of the blocks, and there's a killer goal before half time, as I said earlier, that kind of pushed them back again. But they really, they played okay, you know what I mean? But they were a little bit open. Alan a couple of scores when Brannachs were pushing kind of against the run of play, sort of that kind of in the second half, I thought. But to just keep kind of them at arm's length. So look at two good teams, and compared to our game was on afterwards, the pace of it was a lot quicker than Spittle Gabriel's game now. So which would be worrying from a Spittle perspective, that we need to get up to the pace. But I know that we will get up the pace, and we have been up to that pace before, so I would have no worries about that from our perspective. But the pace of the game definitely was a little bit faster. and two strong teams, two physically very, very strong teams, I thought. You know what I mean? And great battles all over the pitch. Forwards getting bar Allen, forwards getting very little room. Caltro seemed well organised now and seemed to snuff out Killian very well. He got a couple of scores, a couple of frees and stuff like that. But other than that, Mike McCarthy was in there as well. He got a lot of attention as well. So look at it, going forward. That's it's be interesting how those two teams go for the rest of the championship. So it's definitely a very good game that I've seen the last day.
Yeah, big win for Culture there.
Mm.
That is all, though. We do have time for on today's podcast. There's 16 games we've got through in the senior and intermediate championship. A huge amount of action to get through, but the football's obviously on a break now this weekend. Hurling takes place, but it'll be back then the following weekend for round two. But thanks a million to Jonathan and Donal for coming on.